Join us by the fireside for our evening tales of true life's strange experiences with things that lie beyond the veil of the known and into the misty depths of the mysterious and unknown.
The Chinese Girl. When I was 9 years old, my family and I went on a trip to China. My family has always been the adventurous type, so it was natural that, we couldn't just go and look at the Great Wall or whatever other tourist attractions. No, my parents hired a driver to drive us around the rural villages to visit yak farms and climb glaciers and all that stuff. So anyway, one night we had to stop in the middle of nowhere. We ran out of gas, I believe, and we ended up in what seemed to be a village, although it was basically just a long dirt road with one very creepy hotel, and it had a few corrugated tin buildings that were sort of scattered around. The hotel didn't look like much from the outside, but when you went in the lobby, it was really creepy. It was almost kind of Victorian looking. And there was this sort of big Victorian looking ballroom. The lobby was made to look like a luxury hotel. But when you really look closer, you notice that everything was made of plastic or painted cement. It was almost like a movie set. Everything was sort of fake. And it was all completely just falling apart here and there. It was like no one had stayed there in years. At first, our translator told us that they had no room. But then I guess she explained our situation and they came up with a room for us. While we were checking in, I felt this malevolent presence behind me. It was just really strong. And so I turned around to look. There was a girl who looked to be maybe about 12 or 13 years old in a shadowy corner of the room, and she was staring at me with her mouth hanging open. She was barefoot and dressed in rags. At first, I was sad because I thought she must have worked there, and she was only a few years older than me. But then she did this thing with her eyes that to this day it is the creepiest thing I've ever seen. They sort of just went completely round and bulged out several inches from her eye sockets. I'd seen a photo once of someone in the Guinness Book of World Records who could do something similar, but this was a random child in rural China doing this at me for apparently no reason. By the time I got my parents and older brother to look, she popped them back in her head and she just looked normal. When we got to our rooms, there was mold on the ceiling and there were just roaches everywhere. There was one bathroom for the whole floor down the hall. The lights didn't work. I went to the bathroom with a flashlight. I turn it on, and the girl from the lobby is there. She is sitting there in the corner of the bathroom in the dark, with her eyes bugging out again. She's sitting there motionless in the dark. Then she starts making this sound with her throat, like the girl from The Grudge. I freaked the hell out and I ran back to our room. By the time my brother went, she was gone. So naturally, everyone thought I was making this up, just being dramatic. But then when we went out to dinner, she was waiting for us in the lobby again. This time I made my brother look right away, and he caught the eye thing for a second, which is how I know I didn't imagine it. I don't think he wanted to admit it, but it definitely freaked him out. We go to dinner at one of the little tin shacks down the road, and she was following us all the way there. And she sat down at the table next to us. By this time, I'm just close to a panic attack. Every time I tried to point her out, she'd pop her eyes back in, so most of the family saw was just a quick glimpse. They admitted that there was something off about her eyes, but other than that, they didn't seem too concerned. We got a lot of stares since, there were no tourists in the countryside, but this was something else. I don't know how to explain it, but I was positive that she was staring at me specifically. It was like she wanted something from me. We got the hell out of there early the next morning. I can't prove this has anything to do with making cursed eye contact with this girl, spirit, demon child, but some creepy things that happened on that trip after. We had tea, and my tea leaves spelled out toxic. My brother got really sick, he blamed the food, and lost quite a bit of weight. I started getting really depressed, moody, without knowing why. Eventually, I'd be diagnosed with major depressive disorder as a teenager, but I don't remember having any symptoms of depression before that trip. I had posted about this on a different thread, and someone commented that it looks like you found a Diao Si Gui. So I Googled it, and well, I guess that explains my suicide attempts. Yeah, I wonder if she was, a physical person or if she was indeed just a spirit, this Diao Sigui kind of being. That's how you pronounce it, um, which is supposed to have this long kind of red tongue that sort of comes out and these bulging eyes. And I think it's supposed to be something to do with someone who committed suicide by hanging or someone who was hung, something like that. So that must have been quite terrifying, actually. Kind of thing that really just haunts you for a long time. I mean, just, thinking about it, I'm talking about. Strange knocks on my door. When I was around 15, 16, we just suddenly started getting knocks on our door, and it was around 10 p.m. at night, once or twice a week. It was always around 10 to 11 p.m., always three strong knocks. We would also hear the sliding glass door to our sunroom open and slam closed. This went on for about 3 months, regularly. Every time I would rush out to catch whatever it was, I was met with just nothing. I remember one night I was just kind of relaxing with my dog, and he was asleep on my leg. My room shared a wall with our sunroom. I heard the sliding glass door just fly open. My dog heard it too and is instantly awake. I'm out of that front door in less than 3 seconds. Nothing there. Sliding glass door is half open. After that, the knocks became less frequent. It started happening only about once a month, maybe. One night, I was out with my friends who are, from my martial arts lessons. And I got a call from my mom asking if that's me at the door. I said no, and I immediately rushed home. Nothing again. The next night, the knocks come again, and this time I'm standing right next to the door. I just pull out my knife and I'm out of that door like a bat out of hell. I see my gate swing open. I sprint out into my driveway. Again, nothing. I wander to the edge of my driveway and I see my neighbor, who's a young ex Marine who lives with his elderly mother next door, and he's standing out there smoking a cigarette. He asks me if I'm looking for my dog. I feel a chill go down my spine. I tell him no. I'm looking for the thing that keeps knocking on my door. My mom had previously told him and his family about the strange knocks. This dude's demeanor instantly changes. He tells me to give him my knife and call the cops. I do, and he gets a flashlight and starts to look in the bushes just across the street. It was a windy night. I called the cops and I came back outside and I asked him if he saw anything. He told me he saw what looked like a large dog running on all fours, bolt across the street into the bushes at inhuman speed. He said he thought it was my dog getting out, but said it had looked bigger than he thought my dog was, good-sized German Shepherd. When I told him it was the thing producing the knocking, he said that clicked, that something was definitely wrong. As well, he also said that whatever it was smart because he could hear it moving in the bushes, but it would only move when the wind blew, just to sort of mask its movements. So the cops showed up and they started looking around. They found a trampled path leading up the neighborhood just in front of my house, and it sort of starts to lead up a hill. My other neighbor from the first house on that hill walked down and asked the cops if they're looking for somebody. They say, yeah. He says there's someone on his roof. The look these cops gave each other was comical. We're up at the house 30 seconds. The cops, my neighbor, and myself, and I'm 16 years old. The cops climbed up on the roof and they couldn't find anybody. The cop says that the only way off that roof is a 20-foot jump over a spiked metal gate. We went around to check it out, and sure enough, trampled pathway leading out into the forest trails on the hill. Whatever was on the roof had presumably made this incredible leap off of the roof and over this Gothic-styled spiked metal fence to escape. The next day, we got out to observe the trail this thing left in daylight, and we found right across the street from my driveway, I kid you not, a trampled down nest in the foliage that had this months old remains of various small creatures. The knocks stopped after that, but it's always my favorite ghost story to tell. I had a lot of other strange things happen in the neighborhood, just a weird place. I stopped being negative to them once I hit my 20s, but I still wonder if there's still weird stuff going on. I just don't notice anymore. Was it a ghost or a monster of some kind? My mom ended up calling the city every week for months and demanding that they trim the foliage across our street from us until they finally did. And then we bought 3 guns. That's pretty fascinating and certainly very scary, but I wondered what this creature was and why it was knocking on your door. What did it want from you specifically, I wonder? That's definitely pretty weird. Like always, I'm, always curious about did anything happen in that area where your neighborhood is, or where your house stands, some kind of old burial ground, or just, something like that. It'd be kind of interesting to know. Creature in the sky. Me and my girlfriend were on a road trip without any end in mind. We were just driving up the coast of California and we just decided to sleep on the beach. I'm not sure exactly where we were, but I'd say within about an hour's drive south of Monterey. As we were hanging out on the beach at night, we both noticed a huge figure in the sky. Slowly, as it gets nearer, I realized that this thing was not a bird. I've seen hawks, golden eagles, owls, vultures, condors. None of them look like this. It also didn't fly like a bird. It sort of just flapped what appeared to be leathery wings very slowly. I swear my first thought was that this was a dragon. What's more is both of us saw it. We both stared at it, just awestruck for a few seconds before I caught its profile against the moon, and it very strikingly looked to be a pterosaur. In the few moments we witnessed this thing, it was like reality froze and just sort of gelled around this moment. It was like my focus was being directly pointed to this thing. I found that same sensation when I've had other paranormal experiences, like the universe wants you to pay attention to this moment. Later on, I even found a website for documenting pterodactyl sightings on the California coast, with several occurring within that region. I tried to remain, a rational skeptic, but this was simply mind blowing. And it sure as hell felt like we were looking at some sort of flying reptilian cryptid dinosaur thing. And it was pretty clear as well. So there wasn't much chance of mistaking it. I don't see how it could have been anything fake or, kite or anything like that, because it didn't look like anything like that. It looked real. There are actually quite a few accounts of these cryptid giant flying birds, like thunderbirds and pterodactyls and things like that. Oh, and giant eagles as well. That's another one that people have seen in various parts of the world. So it makes you wonder if they're actually just physical, or if they are, something else that just sort of appears now and then, at certain times. Pretty fascinating, though. I wish there was a way to just take a photograph of it, and actually show it clearly. That would be really something. The reptilian. I had this experience a while ago. It was while I was sleeping. I heard a loud pop. It was similar to a firecracker, but not really quite as loud. I thought maybe it was my computer, some sort of electrical short. So I just woke up and I looked at my computer to see if there was a fire or something. I didn't see anything in the dark, so I just relaxed and shifted to lay on my back to go back to sleep. I was looking up at the ceiling. Within a couple of seconds, I started to notice some sort of vague, shadowy figure, as if it was standing next to my bed and waving a hand over me. Now, I've seen shapes like this before, so I just watched the hand out of curiosity. Then the hand went away, and I felt the side of my bed dip down. It was as if something was pushing down on it. It was slow enough, as if not to scare me, yet firm enough to be very noticeable. This was surprising, but actually, I wasn't really scared for some reason. I looked to where the shadow was standing, and out from the dark, just for a brief moment, I saw a reptilian looking humanoid appear there, wearing a plain and slightly loose shirt and holding a clipboard with his left hand and holding a pen or something in his right, as if making a note. His head was in profile to me, turned to his left, so I was actually looking at the right side of his face. His eyes stood out to me the most. He looked concerned. Round pupil, fairly large in size, and almost kind of, sort of cartoonish looking in a way. But it was kind looking too. I could see scales outlined on his skin, and he had these larger scales along his prominent brow. He had a smallish sort of beak nose, and it looked like his upper lip covered down to his bottom jaw. In other words, there was no discernible lips or mouth. His shoulders were really broad, and they were more broad than most humans. And he seemed a little bit shorter than a typical human, I guess. I didn't see anything below where his elbows sat around his midsection, so I don't know what his legs or feet looked like. The way it looked was like he and the details were outlined in the lights you see when you press on your eyes. That kind of greenish, yellowish, slightly rainbow look. It was quite bright in the dark, but still kind of faint. It was very brief. It was like, just over a second maybe, but very detailed and in the center of my vision. So I just saw it just so incredibly clearly. It was clearer than normal vision. I have no idea what to make of it, but I will never forget it. I tried to draw him once, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to. But I do think a lot about this. And it actually happened in 2009. I was in my 20s. Well, I'm curious as to what he was doing with the clipboard there, making notes. What was he doing? Just kind of checking up on you. Um, Kind of interesting. I wonder what kind of dreams you had after having this experience, for the following weeks, months, years, and how it, affected your life. Because quite often these things do, something changes in your life afterwards over the next few months, well, weeks, months, maybe even years. Fascinating.